Hello and welcome to a new episode of Echo at Africa, your environmental magazine. Today, we're coming from a green corner of Lagos. That's where we'll be coming to you from. And we're going to be meeting some strong women who are doing their bit for the environment. In Mali, we introduce a young lady who set up a business to feed people in her country's growing capital. In Nigeria, we talk to Priscilla Achakwa about her work as an environmental leader. And then in Uganda, we find out about threats to fauna in the Mount Elgon National Park. In many parts of the world, increasing numbers of people are fleeing rural areas in search of new opportunities. In West Africa, that trend is giving rise to business ideas, such as the farms in and around cities that are helping to feed the growing urban population. That's happening in Nigeria, but guess where it's happening also? In Mali. And a strong young lady is helping her family's agricultural business there.
Cucumber, harvested at the Nyang family farm. These fresh vegetables need to be handled with care as they go bad quickly. That's why farmer Aminata has to make sure that they get to the market today. They're carefully packed in crates and put in her car. We have just finished harvesting. We will deliver them in the evening when it's less hot. Aminata's family owns these 4 hectares of land. Each family member has his own specialty, like livestock, fruit, or vegetable farming. Her brother sees the management, while Aminata ensures that the produce gets to its final destination. It is better if a woman goes to the market. My brothers don't know much about the market. They just try to get rid of the produce quickly. For them, it's all about the quantity they sell. I am much more patient. Aminata is on her way to her first destination. A certified translator who got her diploma in South Africa initially didn't want to venture into agribusiness. At last, she arrives at a small market stall located in the center of Bamako. One of her customers forgot to call to place an order. She is disappointed because she gets fewer cucumbers than expected. That is for another customer. Please leave them. I cannot give them to you. Everything must be weighed carefully, otherwise you'll be ripped off, says Aminata. The two know each other very well. Our weighing scales are different. Here is quite small, as you can see. Vendors here have a way of manipulating the weighing scale so that they earn a bit more and we lose some. I always have to bargain with her. Aminata has to be a tough bargainer and still keep her clients. But she is very talented at what she does, and she has to get a good price after all the hard work she put in. Thanks to modern technology like this shadow greenhouse, the farm has become profitable. It is now possible to harvest cucumber throughout the year. The net house has a microclimate. You could call it a mosquito net for plants. It protects them not only against insects, but also against the rain and the sun. Aminata's father came up with the idea for this kind of farming. He worked at the UN as an agricultural expert for 30 years. His children took his advice. Patient but assertive, Aminata and her 7 siblings now plan to expand their business in order to meet Bamako's growing demand for fresh vegetables.
We're staying with farming and we'll look at how climate change is impacting the agricultural sector. Though the farmers are among those whose livelihoods are threatened by unpredictable weather patterns, they also contribute to them through their own CO2 emissions and reliance on monocultures. So what can they do to help slow global warming? Let's find out.
Drought and flooding. The agricultural sector has long been feeling the effects of climate change, but it's also partly to blame. Farming is believed to be responsible for 30% of worldwide CO2 emissions. An enormous amount of carbon dioxide is stored in soil, so when land is farmed, greenhouse gases are released. Greenhouse gases are also released when forests are converted into land for grazing or crop cultivation. When artificial fertiliser is spread on fields, it releases nitrous oxide. This is 300 times more harmful than carbon dioxide. Then there's the diesel used by tractors and mowing machines. Cooling systems and transport also take an environmental toll. According to experts, the agricultural sector could theoretically save 6 billion tonnes of CO2 a year. So what exactly can farmers do to protect the climate? Farmers can plant trees on part of their fields. These improve soil, and that means farmers need to use less fertiliser. Every tree that's planted absorbs CO2, and that makes them good for the environment and good for farmers. Farmers who grow corn in one part of their fields, wheat on another, and beans on another, can rotate the different crops on the same land from year to year. This helps stop the loss of water and soil nutrients, and again means farmers don't have to use as much fertiliser. If farmers plough shallow furrows, then the humus layer remains stable. Humus is another valuable carbon sink. The more farmers adopt these methods, the more fertile soil will remain. Modifying agricultural practices is now a recognised method of carbon sequestration.
Okay, so we're staying with the rural theme. We meet a Nigerian woman who is showing others how to protect their natural surroundings. Now, one of the most interesting green leaders in the country, Priscilla Chapa of the Women Environmental Program, works tirelessly to explain climate change and increase the awareness of the connections between environmental protection and economic empowerment. Channels Television and Deutsche Welle met with the activist in Abuja.
It's not difficult for me, but for them, before you go to explain. There is not enough awareness on environmental issues in Nigeria, especially when you are talking about the issues of climate change. A lot of people are ignorant about it, especially, the rural areas. But even when you look at the elites, it's only very few that when you begin to talk to them about climate change that they understand it. So a lot of education, a lot of communication needs to be done in this regard. Now Lake Chad has dried up. Millions of people, thousands of people are forced to migrate. And in migrating, you know the consequences of forced migration. Of course, we call Nigeria the Middle Belt now as a time bomb, because people are moving from the far north into the Middle Belt, where you have at least you have the greens now. You have people from the south moving into the Middle Belt, and you have people from the southeast also moving into, all in search of greener pastures. People are going to, especially our women. This is really nice. Because of the passion and what my parents built into me, I felt that it was necessary for me to take up this issue. But more striking, I was working in a bank, and as a banker, my house where I was living, most of the time, because I love flowers, and my house was a den where everybody was coming to come and pick flowers, and it was very neat. In fact, my children used to refer to me and said, "You know who are mommy's second children? The flowers. You touch it and you touch trouble." We are working very much with the women and the youth in the rural areas, in this area, communicating climate change, building their capacity, and giving them skills that they can acquire in terms of trying to as an alternative for their source of livelihoods. And this, we are teaching them the issues of compost making, using solid waste, using animal dungs and using rice husks for briquettes and all that on how they can do this. We feel that the hours that women spend in looking for firewood and in going to fetch for water, if those hours could be used for productive activities, women will earn a kind of economic activities. So in this regard, we are empowering women through the use of briquettes and through the use of alternative cook stoves. We need a concerted effort. We need synergy. We need a lot of people. We need funds. We need the communities to be able to understand some of these issues and how we can address them.
Lake Malawi is one of the biggest in Africa and should be a reliable source of food for local communities. But using mosquito nets to catch fish has left stocks seriously depleted. A small organization is now trying to help by teaching locals not to disturb young fish in breeding season and showing them other ways to get a good catch. Now, everyone gets to do their bit for their environment.
Malawi's biggest lake is in crisis. 300,000 people in the area live off fishing. But for decades, fishing was not regulated. And some fishermen used mosquito nets, catching even the youngest fish. This led to a dramatic decline in fish stocks. The NGO Ripple Africa helped a community in setting up a fish conservation committee. The committee controls a 40-kilometre stretch of the shore and determines the minimum mesh size. The area is off limits for 4 months, allowing fish to breed. As a result, fish stocks have recovered, and fishermen make more money again. Ripple Africa wants to extend the project to other parts of Lake Malawi. We like that. Are you also doing your bit? Tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
Well, Africa is still battling with emissions from cars and traffic jams in Lagos, Nigeria. But let's go to Germany, where the government wants to see 1 million electric cars on the roads by 2020. As things stand, the goal is a distant dream because e-mobility is, though a nice idea, is yet to catch up with the imagination of the driving public. There's now some hope that e-buses could make a difference. But let's take a closer one, at the silent future on the roads in the heart of Europe.
This city bus looks like an ordinary diesel-powered one, but it's all electric. Last summer, Mannheim put 3 e-buses into service. They can be quickly recharged at the bus stops. For such a quick recharge, a special battery is needed. Even with over €6 million invested in the development of the e-bus, it has quite a long way to go to become economically viable. But the project head is hoping that the buses and their batteries will eventually become standard.
It's still relatively expensive as a research and development project. The costs aren't commercially feasible yet, so it can't be compared with other vehicles. But a few things are in the pipeline concerning the battery, among other things, from which we expect considerable reductions in cost.
The e-buses were developed by the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. This laboratory produces lithium-ion batteries. Electric vehicles, or EVs, need cheaper batteries with longer ranges. Here, researchers and programmers are working on optimizing the software for electric cars. They collect data on the vehicle's battery charge status and charging process. The first time they've been able to do so in such detail. The project is expected to give electric vehicles a huge boost.
Car owners need the data to get a clear picture of the battery status. They've got a destination to reach, so the vehicle has to cover a certain distance. Other parties have an interest in this data as well. For example, rental car companies. They have a business interest in knowing that cars are available at certain times.
The students in Karlsruhe could well be the EV developers of tomorrow. They even built this electric race car themselves and entered it in international student championships and the Formula E. While the E-bus was designed for everyday use, the race cars test the limits of the new technology.
In the Formula Student Engineering competition, for example, we can test what's possible in electric mobility in the coming years. We have so many sponsors investing in our ideas who believe in us and in electric cars. Who knows? Maybe we're doing the groundwork so that in 1, 2 or 3 decades we'll have more electric cars on German roads.
The race cars prove the special batteries are useful not just for slower vehicles such as the E-bus in Mannheim. They also do their job on the racetrack. The car reaches a speed of 120 kilometers an hour. Last year, the students won a major Formula E race with this electric racer, and that's just the beginning.
Nigeria is located on the equator, blessed with plenty of sunlight and a tropical climate that ensures plenty of winds. But let's see what's being done in Germany, where there's a race to go green completely. We'll go to northern Germany, where a thinly populated area of the country and the perfect backdrop for a key part of the puzzle in the German plan to transition to renewable energy. Wind turbines are changing life in fundamental ways there, and going green has become easier than ever before. In fact, some places supply is already outstripping local demand.
There's still plenty of room in North Frisia for the deer to play, even if the countryside's bristling with wind turbines. The farmers here started producing energy from renewable sources as long as 20 years ago, and many of them got rich. Reinhard Christiansen produces far more electricity than he can sell.
We'd like to supply the local population with electricity so they can benefit from it too. Agriculture has changed here. We have the shadows and the noise from the turbines, but if you can get electricity so cheaply from the wind farms right close by, that would be some advantage.
Nowhere else in Germany are there as many electric cars per capita as in North Frisia. Wind farmer Reinhard Christiansen drives one too, a Tesla he bought for some 120,000 euros. It accelerates from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3 seconds.
When the turbines are turning, we've got green power in the entire grid, so Schleswig-Holstein can provide its own energy. We produce 300% of what we need, so we have to export it.
He makes regular trips to Berlin to see about that export. A grand reception at the German Renewable Energy Federation. The North Frisian wind farmer is a familiar face here. For years, he's been lobbying for the construction of power lines that would carry his wind power to the industrial and population centers of southern Germany.
Everyone's aware the Southern Link is absolutely necessary. It would carry the power we produce in Schleswig-Holstein and offshore to the south. We could supply some 14 million people with power. That's more than the population of Schleswig-Holstein and Hamburg put together.
Wind farmers like Christiansen are acquiring lots of clout in Germany. The federal government has put billions of euros in subsidies into renewable resources to replace the nuclear power now being phased out.
Wind turbines are replacing nuclear reactors. Solar is replacing coal. Just a quarter century ago, it was a fanciful vision. Today, it's reality.
In December 2015, for the first time, wind power overtook lignite coal as Germany's leading energy resource. The goal is to cover over half the country's total energy needs from renewable sources by 2050.
We'll get there. Investors finance the wind turbines here, and they're willing to put some venture capital into the industry. We'll prove it can be done. Indeed, it has been done. Now we have to introduce it to the entire country.
The way to do that is to transport green power to southern Germany and increase the number of electric cars. If that happens, the energy reform can succeed, as it already has in North Frisia.
We go from the flatlands of Europe to the highlands of Africa. And to be more specific, we're going to Uganda's Mount Elgon National Park. Once a paradise for plants, birds and bigger beasts such as elephants, leopards and buffaloes. Poaching and increased demand on water supply there eroded the regional biodiversity. The government's response? It was drastic, and the human population is still learning to live with the consequences.
They call it the Mountain of the Sun, although its summit is usually wrapped in clouds. Mount Elgon in eastern Uganda, a volcano that's been extinct for many centuries. The mountain is famed for its biodiversity. We begin our ascent under the guidance of a ranger from the Uganda Wildlife Authority. Thanks to the many mountain streams, a unique ecosystem has emerged. To preserve it, the upper part of the mountain was declared a nature reserve in 1993. At the time, more than 30,000 people had to be resettled. 27-year-old Andrew Tasika defends this decision.
Because if they are to stay in the park, then they do their activities, and they will end up spoiling the ecosystem and the streams of water which are coming from the mountains.
People were forced out so that nature could develop undisturbed. The entrance to the reserve is guarded by the Ugandan military. People are allowed into the national park only with a permit. In addition, the soldiers make sure no one smuggles anything out of the park. Leopards, buffalo, and elephants used to live here. But now there are only a few monkeys. Humans have killed or driven out all the other large animals.
For example, the elephants, when they were hunted, these are animals with a very high memory, in that when one of them is killed, they will never forget where the friend died from, and they will never cross there. So, like for the elephants, I don't think they will ever come back to Uganda.
At an elevation of 3,500 meters, we reach our camp. It's quite cold up here, just 8 degrees Celsius, but our campfire keeps us warm. Early the next morning, we start our final ascent. The destination, a mountain lake just below Jackson's Peak, 4,165 meters up in the Mount Elgon Massif. The view at the highest point of our trek is special. At the same time, I'm eager to hear what the people who were forced out when the national park was established have to say. Andrew thinks the nature protection laws could be more stringent. But at the foot of the mountain, many people yearn for the past.
When we lived up on the mountain, our lives were good. We had huge farms and everything grew without artificial fertilizer. But then they suddenly told us that we had to leave. We were very frightened. We didn't know what would happen to us.
Because of the resettlement, 30,000 more people suddenly had to be provided for. Over time, the soil became exhausted. Landslides after rainfalls became increasingly frequent. So the Conservation Authority wants to build up the tourist trade and attract more hikers and trekkers to the mountain. This would create a completely new source of income for the people around Mount Elgon and make them less dependent on agriculture. We returned to the base camp. This time we had the mountain almost to ourselves. There were hardly any tourists. But when we come back next time, it might be different.
Everywhere you turn, individuals, groups, companies and even governments are doing their bit to protect the environment around them. What are you doing? Tell your story. Website, emails, social media platforms, ours are showing on your screen. Get in touch. Tell us what you're doing, and we can help you tell it to the world. That's our package for today. I want to thank you for staying with us. We wait to hear from you. Till we bring you another edition of the show. Bye-bye from Lagos, Nigeria.